Well, thank you all for coming. Sorry we're starting a little late. We often do because Michaela's guides are very long-winded, so they usually go a little longer, as you've experienced. So, how many of you are brand new to these events?
Oh, okay. Wow.
Quite
a few.
Thanks for coming. Well, then I'll talk just briefly about our organization in case any of the other things interest you. For those of you who've been coming frequently, I apologize for boring you for a few minutes. So we represent an organization called Flower of Life Center, and we put on a lot of events locally and globally. And so we're more of an active organization that's really trying to create positive changes in the world. This thing that we do here once a month is just one small facet of what we do. We have a larger event that's sort of like a whole weekend of these kind of things that we put on once a year, although last year we did it twice. It's coming up this November 10th to the 12th, and that's we rent out a hotel in Detroit, and it's 3 days of different speakers flying from all over. And that's not a Detroit event, it's an international event, so we have people flying in from all over the world to attend. So it's a significant thing, and there are lots of really interesting topics. Michaela will be there, of course, and Barb and I will be there doing our thing, and she'll be teaching an aura workshop, which is one of our most popular workshops. People actually come in from out of state just for that. And we actually have somebody coming in from Australia this time.
Oh, really? Yeah. Wow.
So anyway, it's a big event, and lots of topics from aura reading to extraterrestrial contact. We have several people there who are regression therapists who work with people who have had extraterrestrial contact and regression and share what they've learned from those case studies. We have somebody there who has done a lot of research into consciousness and genetics and actually worked with PhD scientists to do scientific research into what happens when energy, such as the energy you're going to experience here today, affects someone's DNA. So we're actually starting to see the merging of science with consciousness and the validation of a lot of these things that have been spoken of by the mystics for many thousands of years. So we have people there presenting on those topics, everything from health. We have somebody speaking on archaeology, ancient civilizations, and things like that as well. So quite a variety of things, some sound healing experiences all throughout the weekend. So if you get a chance to attend that, then join us for that this November. We have a lot of other things going on, too many things to really talk about in detail, but we have a kids program that we're working on. We've had it for several years, but our next phase of that is a weekend retreat for next year, where we're bringing in experts in different fields of work, including telepathy and telekinesis, and we're going to teach the kids how to develop these skills and talents, which so these are all teachers who are actually doing this kind of work and who have worked with kids in many cases to teach them these skills, and also teaching kids how to deal, who are very gifted and sensitive, in how to deal with the environmental conditions of the third dimension. That a lot of these kids are very hypersensitive and they don't function very well in this reality. So we'll be teaching them how to, with tools and understanding, to be able to deal with and also to thrive in this reality. So that's our next program. It'll be a 3-day weekend next year at a campground, and we'll be bringing in lots of really amazing teachers from all over to teach that class or that weekend. So many things like that, and we have lots of long-term projects that we're about to launch or that are in the working process to raise the vibration. And I have a TV show, I don't know if some of you might watch it, that has an international audience, and we interview a lot of guests like this. Michaela's events are always broadcast there, and sometimes me and Barb as well. So it's called Awaken Empower TV. It's broadcast out of a network in the UK. It's not a TV channel as in you're used to a TV channel. It's they broadcast it out of the UK and they live stream it, and all the old shows are on YouTube. So if you want to catch the archive, all you have to do is search my name on YouTube or just on Google, and you'll see all the previous episodes. All kinds of topics from from science, technology. I've interviewed people who are doing breakthrough work in energy research and genetics in Russia, and to people who are doing work in extraterrestrial contact and healing and breatharianism, all kinds of subjects. So quite a variety of very interesting things. So you can, there's 3 years almost of shows. So quite a bit of stuff out there you can catch up on. So we're doing all kinds of things, and so our organization, although it's local, we have a global presence, and so a lot of people follow our work all over the world, and many of our events, such as Expo coming up, are attended by people from all over. So anyway, get involved in anything if you'd like, and we can certainly, we'll be doing next month, September, we are going to start recruiting for volunteers to help us run the Expo. So if you have an interest in doing that, that event's going to be posted soon. If you, I believe it's something, I can't remember, so don't quote me on this, but I think it's, if you volunteer 5 or 6 hours per day of the Expo, you can take in the other events if you want. So with the exception of workshops, there are some workshops that cost extra from the basic ticket price, those you have to pay for, but other than that, if you want to volunteer and help out, then you can attend the rest of the Expo. So that will be next month. We'll be doing the first training for that. You do have to attend the training if you want to volunteer. So some things to do, and you can certainly join our other teams too if any of those projects interest you. We'd love to have you. So just let us know and you can get involved. Anyone have any questions about any of that? Okay. So we put on these events here. We've been doing it for many years now, and I'll let Barb tell you her story for those of you who are new in a few minutes. And so basically, this consciousness event and this energy transfer event is really, in many ways, the foundation of everything that we're doing as an organization, in that there is a thread of consciousness in everything that we do. There are many conferences that have similar topics to what we have, but our conference, most of the people who come to it, they don't necessarily tell me, oh, I learned really cool stuff. They tell me it changed my life. And so that's because at the foundation, at the core of everything we do is this vibrational element that changes people and alters their reality and raises their consciousness. And so this energy transfer event is very much at the core of everything that this organization represents. So what you're here to do today, whether you realize it or not, is to raise your consciousness, to remove some of the density that you've been carrying around with you through lifetimes. And so when I use the word density or karmic density or karma, I'm referring to, I'll explain what that means. So many people have an understanding of what karma is, but not a lot of people understand what density is or how they relate. So I'll use an example. Let's say in a past life you had a relationship with a soulmate, somebody who you've been with many lifetimes, and that soulmate is with you again in this life. So that is karma. Karma is when there is a tie to an experience or a person who you've been with before. Now let's say in that past life, that with that soulmate, you had some kind of a trauma. So maybe you both died violently, which quite often does happen with soulmates who've been together many lifetimes. There's always trauma at some point. But let's say you had some kind of trauma, and now you have the karma of having been together, but you also have the trauma, which translates into a vibrational density. And the density weighs down your human experience in this three-dimensional reality. So you reincarnate, and here you meet again. And when you meet again, the relationship is very turbulent, or it's difficult, or there's some stress or health problem or something that makes it uncomfortable. Well, that's karmic density. It's the density of the past life experience that's traveled with you into this incarnation. And in this incarnation, it weighs down your experience and makes that relationship hard again, because you never resolved the original issue that occurred. So when I'm talking about karma or density in the context of this conversation, I'm referring to that. So what we'll do here today is we will remove that density that you're carrying in your energy bodies that you've carried through lifetimes. Now, that doesn't mean that all of you will remove 100% of it. Some of you are not able to do that, only because everybody's different. So as unique as you look from the person sitting next to you, your energy body's different, your karmic density is different, your consciousness is different. And some of you are carrying an immense amount of density and others only very little. And some of you, if we were to remove all of it at once, the shock to your physical system would be too much. So you may need to come back more than once to do that. The effects are cumulative, so keep coming back as often as you can. And so as you remove the density, your life becomes lighter. And so one of the side effects of that is you become happier and you don't have this energetic weight that's weighing down your human experience. So that's part of what we're doing today, is we're going to remove that. Now, when we get to that part, now the energy is already present in the space. So wherever this physical body is, this consciousness is always working through it. And so it isn't necessarily turned off until I turn it on. It's always on, but in about an hour, we're going to increase the intensity of that energy. So your experience will be intense for a short period of time. But it's always on. So a lot of people who are very energy sensitive who come to these events, they'll tell me, well, I felt the energy as soon as I walked in the room. And that's because it's always on. So we're going to do that. And the other part is we're going to, so you're going to send that density to me. And I want you to not be concerned about me in this process. We've been doing this for many years here in person. And now I do it remotely with people around the world. There are some people who are in my advanced program who are serious about their spiritual growth, and they sign up to receive up to 12 sessions per month remotely. So anytime throughout the day, 24 hours a day, there are people around the world who are sending me their density, their karmic density. And there's no adverse effect to me. My physical body was prepared prior to this incarnation to do this. And my multidimensional body was also prepared. So I came into this incarnation for this purpose in order to do this. So it's not something anybody should do, but you don't have to worry when I ask you to send that density to me that anything is going to happen to me adversely. So you'll no longer be carrying it, but I won't either. It will disintegrate as it hits my energy field, and so you don't have to carry it out the door with you after you go. Now, at the same time, we're going to be sending a white light energy to your heart centers, which will raise your consciousness, expand your energy field, and Barb will speak more about that in a few minutes. And the effects are cumulative. So as Barb says, people who have been coming month after month to our events, their energy fields are hitting the ceiling as they're walking in the room, whereas those who are brand new to our events, oftentimes their auras are very small. So we know the effects are cumulative over the years, and the effects on your consciousness are also cumulative. There's also, whenever you're sending multidimensional energy, there is multidimensional information contained in the energy. That's not information as we think of information. So when you read a book, there's information, which translates to knowledge. Multidimensional information is, so when Michaela was channeling, those of you who may not be familiar with how channeling works, when somebody, especially someone like her who is a unconscious channel, her ego is pretty much out of the way when she's channeling. She's not even aware of most, if not all, of what she's saying. They are speaking directly through her physical body, and she just kind of goes off to the side and is not even paying attention to what she's saying. So, but what's happening is what her voice is speaking to you is only a very small part of the information that this consciousness is sending. Mostly just for your own entertainment, to keep your butts in the seats, right? So they're answering your question for your intellectual satisfaction, but really what's happening is all of the other information that's coming through that you're completely unconscious of while you're sitting here, but that your mind will start to interpret over time. So it's sort of like there's a package of information that is now in your energy bodies from having participated in this with her, that you will start to take apart and understand over time. And so that may be a month from now, you have some awareness about something that you never really thought of before, or you decide to go to something that you've never been to before, and you meet someone there that opens your eyes to something else. So it will start to open up your life in ways that you cannot consciously perceive right now. So this energy transfer is going to be similar. This energy of the energy transfer is a 13th dimensional energy. So whenever somebody is channeling a particular energy, so when Michaela is channeling a 9th dimensional Palladian collective, she has to be moved to a 9th dimensional vibration to do that. So in a sense, she is, in that moment, a 9th dimensional Palladian. She could not channel them in an unconscious state without being part of that collective. So the energy transfer comes from a 13th dimensional vibration and consciousness. It's not me doing it. It's not this physical body that's doing it, but this physical body was specifically prepared in order to be an anchor in this dimension for them to do that. Because this collective consciousness that facilitates this process can't directly send that energy to you. They needed a physical anchor in this dimension to move that energy through. So for that reason, this body has to be prepared in a certain way to do that, and my soul and my multidimensional self had to be prepared in this incarnation to be able to do this. So it is them that's doing it. So you can't do it wrong, and this is why I can be sitting here right now and there could be somebody in Africa sending me their density right now, and I don't have to worry about thinking about it, because this collective knows what they're doing and they're fully aware of that, and they can facilitate that from anybody, anywhere who is doing that. So you can't do it wrong, I can't do it wrong. By your presence in this room and just participating along in the energy transfer, everything will work out just fine. So just be willing to participate when we ask you to do that. Anyone have questions so far about anything? And this is interactive. You can ask about anything you want. I mean, because of we have access to so many amazing people around the world because of our expo and the show, and my life these days. I used to have a very conventional life in my former life. I say prior to 7 years ago, I had a conventional life, and I used to be a business owner. From pretty much when I was a child, I was in business. But 7 years ago, I owned a marketing creative agency, and I also was a professional trader. So I used to sit in front of screens with numbers flashing across them all day long. And I ran an international trading organization and I taught professional traders how to trade the markets. This was my life 7 years ago. And it was then that I had a bit of a spiritual awakening, and my life went in this entirely different direction, and all that you see in our organization came about since then as a result of that. So back then, my circle was primarily business and financial people. Where nowadays, my life is entirely made up of people who are just doing amazing things in the world in all different fields of work, brilliantly talented. People like Michaela and Barb and so many others are my universe now. So this is the world that I live in. And because of that, we have access to so much information and so much really cool stuff that's happening in the world that most people don't even know exists. So for that reason, you can pretty much ask us anything. If we don't know the answer, we'll say we don't know, but we probably do have access to a lot of things. So if you have anything you want to talk about, just feel free to ask. So I'm going to let Barb talk a little about herself. And so Barb has been helping me with these events since we started many years ago. And we've started here in Michigan at the Troy Public Library about 3-4 years ago, I can't remember. And as an experiment, because I was very left-brain, rational, intellectual guy, and I didn't believe that I could do this at first, but I had to find out for myself. So we did it as an experiment, just getting a group of people together just like this in this area, and we've been doing it ever since. And now I do it on radio shows and podcasts, and if you look at YouTube videos of these events that we've recorded, people around the world watch the videos and they facilitate the energy transfer from the video, and they're having amazing transformative experiences. So it's not anything, it's not something that's dependent on time or space. It transcends space and time. And it's not something that I have to be consciously aware of. I just simply have to intend that it's going to happen at that time for those people, and the rest is just taken care of by this collective. So, but anyway, Barb has been, to a great extent, the impetus for starting this journey, and for much of what you see, from us as an organization. So I'll let her share her story and her gifts, and then we'll continue from there.
Okay. Well, I was a preemie. I was a 7-month baby in the 40s, and at that time, most children who were born preemie didn't make it. Of course, I knew I had to do so much in this lifetime. I wasn't gonna, let that stop me. So I was 4 pounds and 21 inches long when I was born. Went down to 3 pounds, and I was in the incubator for a month. And at that time, they thought that oxygen in the incubators was good for the babies, and they learned that it's not. So, because oxygen will destroy your eyes. So what I had to do is put in a red overlay over my eyes as a protection. Now, a red overlay over your eyes, there's one of 3 reasons. It's a conscious decision from a child from birth to 3 years old for physical abuse, putting yourself in danger, and with a conscious choice that wasn't your choice. The doctor's conscious choice was to put me in that incubator and put that oxygen on. So I had to, in order for me to do what I was going to do in this lifetime, I had to put that red overlay on. And the third choice is some like life-threatening that the baby has no control over. So they put the red overlay to protect their mind and their head, because this is where you think. And so for me, it was just to save my life and put my eyes so that I could start doing, this. And I had no idea that, of course, as a child, you don't remember what you planned. They say that, you plan it all out before you even come here. So I've just known that through my life, it's like I'm ending so many chapters in my book of life, because I was a third parent at 6 years old. I consider myself like a Benjamin Buttons, if you ever see that movie. At 2 years old, they called me baby grown-up. I was talking to grown-ups as an adult language. At 3, I learned to read on my own, and I was an only child till I was 6. At 6, because of my mother's health, I became a third parent. And through my teenage years, even with Halloween time, I would go out and collect candy just like every other kid. But did I get to keep any of it? No, I dumped it in the basket for my parents to pass it out. My siblings got to keep it, but I was grown up. This is to help my parents out. In my teen years, I was babysitting, and I worked through the school. I was bringing some money in to help out, because there ended up being 4 of us. My sister is 6 years younger. My brother's 10 years younger. The youngest one is 15 years younger. And I had to leave school for each one of them in order to take care of the family. So, I've been a very responsible adult. The other thing about this is most children with having siblings and parents, they tell them when they're coloring, oh, don't color in the lines. My parents didn't, they allowed me free thought. And there was no limits on me. So when I saw people, with all their auras, at the time I thought it was glowing. And I never talked about it, because in my mind, when you turn on a light switch, the light comes on. Bing, you say, oh, look at light. I don't know. You don't do that. So for me, seeing people glowing in different aspects, I didn't really think anything about it. There's nothing to talk to anyone about. Plus, also, I was kept home. I really wasn't socializing with the other children. And actually, people my own age, I don't understand. Because, I understand older people, I understand younger people, but my own age, I never got them, because I was older than them, yet I was younger in spirit, I was younger, and I consider myself young now, even though, my age, I feel like I've reversed. For an instance, my first new car, now my dad wanted me to get a Ford Mustang. But no. I had to get a Comet sedan because that was a safe, practical car. Hello. Now I have a Nissan Rogue, which, hey, Rogue. I really wanted a Jeep, but anyway, that's getting off the subject. So anyway, I was married for a while. I learned sign language. I was an interpreter in the 70s for the the deaf. They're not a hearing impaired because they're not impaired. They just can't hear. And then I got into learning about crystals and massage and that. I have healing hands. My dad had Bell's palsy, and he came to me and he says, "Barbara, I'm in trouble." And I said, "I'll fix you." And in 3 days, he had no signs of it. So I took care of that. My mom had Parkinson's. I diagnosed her 20 years before the doctors did, but she wouldn't let me do anything about it because she needed to go through this. You can't always take care of people. Sometimes they need to take care of the things that, they planned for in their lifetime. So, you can only do as much as people are willing to allow. So in my 30s, because of all, everyone has things that they need to deal with. I went to a feminist therapist to deal with, crap. And, yeah, exactly. And in dealing with her, there was like a bullet and it's over on this side. And I saw this little thing that looked like a mouse, and it was jumping around the board, upside down, and, So I was laughing at that. And then she said, "What are you laughing at?" So I told her. And she said, "Do you know what that is?" And I said, "No." How would I know? And she told me that she dreamed she was in the land of two, and she divided herself. And then she says, she said she was just thinking about, she said in order to understand people, and she was thinking about what she's going to pull on the bulletin board. So I goes, "You weren't paying attention to me, you're looking at the bulletin board." So anyway, got over that, and she told me that was an aura. So that was the first time I heard the word aura. Oh, okay. So of course, I have to research it because I'm very curious. I got to know what that means. So I went, I got some books and I took classes. Well, one of the people that was doing classes was a woman, her name was Barbara Bowers, and she flew from California to do this class. So I get in there and I'm sitting way in the back because I'm going, I was nervous, and, I guess I pulled my aura really tight against my body, and I just couldn't relax. So she was explaining everything, and all of a sudden, "You see it too," she said to me. I said, "Oh, yeah." So she hauled me up front. She made me come up front. She told me what my auras were, and of course I knew what colors, but I didn't know anything what they meant. So she explained that to me. And then she used me as, "Look at this, person, what are their colors?" And, she was showing me and teaching me as well as she was showing everybody else. So she actually took me under her wing, and taught me as well as teaching the whole class. I was like her example. "I see this, you see this." "Yes, I do." So, in my mind, with her giving me all that instruction, and plus I had her book, that, she taught me how to use the aura, and what it meant. And then, of course, the memorization of all the different colors. I knew what my intuition is, and I've looked at all the books, and some people say this means this, and some people this means, different something else. But I've learned to trust that inner guide, like, your guides kind of tell you. My inner guide tells me what's really going on in each individual person. Now, here's the thing. because I learned sign language and because I worked with the hearing impaired, and I was like, I'd tell you what she was saying and I go reverse, that was your conversation. It wasn't my conversation, it was your conversation. So as soon as it came into my hands, from you into my hands to you, you know, verbally and going back and forth, that was it. You know, I couldn't even remember what I said. So I take that as same thing in when I do auras. When I read somebody's auras, I prefer, you know, to be more private, because supposing you don't want everyone to know something that I could say about you. And so I also felt that I just can't do it without somebody's permission. I don't want people going, oh God, I wonder what she's seeing about me, because people do that. So I learned to dial it down and only do it with permission. Now in here, I look at the general colors, I look at the general energy, but I won't go deep unless I actually do a one-on-one with people now with their permission. And I've done that for years. And I'm taking the same ethics that I did as a sign and language interpreter to doing aura reading. And some people said, oh, if I could see that, then I would be checking everyone out. Do you think that, in my mind, that's not fair or right? You know, I have an ethical belief that each person has the right to their own privacy, you know, and I do go only very light unless I have permission. So people came up and say, oh, tell me the color of my aura. Well, I say, well, I'll just give you a little bit because they're with a bunch of people. No, I'm not going to do that to you. I won't do it. You don't understand what I might be able to say, you know, so I won't. So, and in respect for that, I always feel things happen for a reason. Now, the reason I was telling you about all these different chapters of my life, well, I retired. And, you know, and had a day where I wanted to go to the gas station and get gas. But, you know, it's just like, oh, I want to do this first. Oh, I want to do that first. And all of a sudden I have this urgency. I got to get to this gas station. So I did. And I saw somebody with a car like mine with a trailer hitch. So I had this voice say, if you don't talk to that person, you'll always regret it. So I went over to now I don't tap on people's windows, but I did. And I asked them how they had a trailer hitch on their car, and I found out that they had a Camco camper that a motorcycle would pull. I said, okay, that's cool. And so they handed me a card that they did foot detox, and I ended up doing that and got to know them, and they decided that I should go to a raw food potluck. My first reaction is, it's not raw meat, is it? No, it's nuts and vegetables and all that stuff, and it's interesting, you like the people and that. And okay. Open mind. Okay, so I went there, and I was looking at all this food. I'm going, So it was really cool. They would explain how they made each type of food and what was in there, and I thought, okay, well, I'll try that. I'm not trying that one, but it was interesting. So in the process of going to this raw food potluck, all of a sudden I saw him. And I said to my friend, I says, oh, I got to talk to him. Well, why do you have to talk to him? I said, I just do. What's his name? I said, okay. I said, before we leave, I've got to talk to this guy. So I went up to him and started a whole ball thing. Went to him and I says, you have the largest aura I have ever seen. Oh my, I just can't, I said, you have a gift. I said, well, I don't know many spiritual masters. The only one I knew of is Gandhi. But him, it's like, shoosh, And so, of course, he thought that was a pretty powerful statement, for me to say. So he had me come under his house, and he was showing me computer screens of different people, and he says after a while they all look the same, So I was telling him all the aura colors, the energy, and all that stuff, and I'm said times I'm thinking, why didn't I see that one? But I don't know, But I was consistent, so then he knew that my gift is real, and then we've had plenty of fun experiences, and so that's how everything all started. So. That's basically a kind of a short synopsis of how this all happened. So, any questions? Probably just blew everyone away here, but
I've heard the story 1,000 times, but Barb's delivery is always really amazing, right?
So when you see auras, you see in colors?
Oh yeah, I do.
So you said that when a person's afraid, the aura shrinks.
Yes, they do. It does. And in fact, Barbara Bowers told me, she says, you had yours so tight to you. She said, I kept looking at you, and you wouldn't show me your colors. And finally you relaxed, and then I got you.
What's the benefit of expanded aura?
The benefit, like when we do this, our auras expand, they stretch out. They expand. I would feel that the benefit of your aura growing stronger is it protects you. It opens your mind more to different possibilities. It makes you happier. You don't feel the weight of the world pushing in on you because you can have more room to breathe. Those are a few things that I have found. The more I've stretched out, the more it's almost like you can comprehend more.
I do a form of Russian martial art, or a martial art called Systemics from Russia. And we do a lot of things to take the slack out of the body. And so when the aura sinks in, it's all crumpled. So you don't have any power in it. When you take the slack out of the body and you move one thing, everything's connected, so it's much more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I get that benefit. And I can relate that way.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Have you had other experiences where you've seen something so strong that you wanted to go tell somebody?
Okay. I was doing a Jinshindo class, and they have 3 parts. And I was on part 2. The third part, you had to fly to California, and then that had to deal with feelings and emotions. Now, for me, I'm not a therapist. I didn't really necessarily want to do for the feelings and emotions, so I passed on the third part of it. But on the second part, everybody had gone to lunch. And there was me and one of my friends and this other woman. They were working on this man. So I'm going, ta, 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 and then I looked at him. And when I looked at them, there was this man. He was like 10 feet tall. He had a Russian hat on with, pockmarks on the hat. He had a long, narrow face with a beard that was trimmed really nice. Yeah, a long neck, and he had robes on, and so I saw his fingertips. They were touching her shoulders. And the ropes were all the way down to the ground, so I kind of looked around to see if there was any wings. And I say, no, there's not any wings. So anyway, I started describing him to the 3 people that were laying there. The guy that's laying there, and Donna, my friend, was on the bottom with the feet. She was holding on his feet, and the other woman was doing stuff with his head. And so I was describing this guy. Now, mind you, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm seeing this, but I don't know that I'm really seeing this. Maybe it's my imagination, whatever. So this is what got me. He was down here looking like this. He looks up, he turns his head around, he nods to me, and then he goes back down. And I said, oh my God, he looked at me. He said, that didn't turn. Then I freaked. Because I freaked. I just go, So I had to go to the window and look out because I just couldn't deal with the fact. I could deal with the fact that I saw him, but I couldn't deal with the fact that he nodded. He knew I was looking at him, and he looked at me and nodded. That kind of really got me, So since that time, I think that my reaction was so extreme. Well, first off, I never had really thought about that type of thing in the world, and I just, like I said, that was so strong and vivid that now they're almost afraid to show themselves totally. So I see them in shadows, and they'll almost let me see their face, but except for Mary. Oh, Mary's so beautiful. Oh, whenever you have Mary, I'm just like, oh, you know. But for the most part, they won't necessarily let me see the total things because they're afraid that I'm going to freak again. I wouldn't, but like the Palladians, the Arterians, whoever she channels, whenever Michaela channels, I see they are on both sides of the wall. And today they were floating around, they were running around the ceiling, and on this side they were just all over. And sometimes I see orbs too. When she channels, it's just like there's so much energy today. I was just going, oh wow.
Do you see movement?
Oh yeah, I see movement.
Can you tell any shape?
Well, a lot of times, today it was really interesting. It was almost like, you know how they had these, those things that, the Pac-Man, you know, not Pac-Man himself, but the shapes, the other shapes. It was the other type of shapes. That was the shapes. They were just flying around the room today, and I'm going, wow, you know. And they were in purple, you know, and they were flying around. But then I always see the different collectives. For some reason, they want me to see them like they're in, jury box. You know, how they have the different seats in the jury box and people are sitting down. So they'll be sitting down in the jury box and they'll be, that's how they want me to see them. So, and it'll change to different ones. And sometimes I almost see their face, but because I had such a severe reaction, I think they're afraid to let me see the total face. And Mary, she doesn't care, you know, I see her, you know. But the rest of them, I think, and I don't know, maybe if I would do it again.
That's interesting, Mark, because you and I, we really, like I was saying, on so many things. Because when I first started to channel, I could actually see a lot too, and I didn't like it. I actually stated a very, determined intention. I said, I do not want to see. I don't want to see. And then I was so sorry I did that, because then I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Wait, I didn't mean it. You know, a year later, I was like, but I want to see now. And sometimes I just get glimpses now, or I get outlines, but I don't ever really see in detail. So
yeah, so that's...
They take those intentions really seriously.
Yeah, it does.
They take intentions super seriously.
Yeah, because of my severe reaction. I mean, I think I would have been fine with it if this spirit or guide, or I think somebody told me he's from Telos. He's one of those people from Telos. And she told me that he comes when she's doing a healing, and he's her spirit guide. I think I would have been fine with it if he hadn't turned his head and nodded at me. I think I would have been okay. But that was just too much. It was okay that I saw him, but when he acknowledged me, then I did really have an issue with it. So now they just, like I said, you know, the intentions are they don't want me to have that repeat thing, just like you know. So I know they're there, and I can see, I see one right now. He's looking at me at the outline of his face, but it's, you know, I saw his eyes and nose and mouth, but he's not real clear, you know. He said, okay, yeah, I'll let you see that much. So, anyone else? Yeah?
Have you ever seen imprints of other beings or stuff on people? And would that, because I've experienced being able to see that sometimes, and so I'm just wondering whether or not it's them themselves or something else being put right on that person's body at that time so they can experience the energy at that time. What's your opinion about that?
I have done, I've had people that have had issues, and I've put them in a crystalline energy circle. I usually have them sit on a chair, and I work with them, and I remove things that don't belong there, that they have themselves given permission for me to allow me to remove them. So I have done that a few times. And I actually did one, and I was thinking of maybe doing a podcast, or maybe actually doing one here, you know, so we can actually have it recorded so people can actually see what I'm doing, you know. And one thing about it is if you feel connected to stones in rocks and crystals, which, you know, and maybe we'll work on that too, there's no wrong way to do it. They'll kind of let you know how you should do it, you know, and you open the energy circle up. I did that at one Expo years ago, but I had too many things that were going through, so I didn't really give it the enough time so people would really understand, you know, what I was doing. I mean, a few people got to sit in it, but, you know, to feel that energy. So, you know, does that answer? And as far as beings, people, you know, can have beings taken into them, and there are probably other people that would be able to remove them more than me. But like I said, I have been able to remove things in an energy circle. I've done more things with houses. You know, people have had me come in their houses, and I've smudged the houses, and I've watched. I went to one house, and I removed the Indian presence because there had been a war where a lot of Indians were killed, and their blood had gone into the soil. And so they were in the energy in this house. And the first time I went to the house, I'm going, ooh, I didn't care for it. So when I cleansed everything, the house was up for sale. Nobody liked it. After I got done with the cleansing of the house, everybody fell in love with the house, and it sold real fast. So I've had more to do with that than actually people, you know. But like I said, in a energy circle, I have worked with that, but with the crystalline stones.
Okay. So it did seem to be like an imprint that belonged to them. So I was just wondering, have you ever experienced that maybe it might be from a different time frame, but I'm seeing it like them in the future or them in the past, and kind of like it's very strange, and it's very, you know, it stays solid with that person. And so I just acknowledge it, know it's there, and sometimes make them aware. So it's just that I just...
Well, each time I deal with any person that I give a one-to-one aura reading with, most of the times when I do aura readings with people, it's to help them with intent, maybe what they want to do, what's been going on with them, and it's led to, you know, whatever that person needs at the time. I suppose if they needed something to remove, and they need to acknowledge it and ask it to leave. I mean, you know, because obviously nothing hangs around without even an unconscious consent. There could be an unconscious consent. That's the reason it's there. Nothing comes in you without your permission. And that, as far as I know, you know, I mean, sure, there are other people would say differently, you know, that, you know, like they always have these evil things in the house. You know, this house that I particularly worked on, one house that I worked on, was because of death, you know. And, you know, sometimes I had a house where I had a homebound spirit. It wasn't, you know, earth ground spirit. It wasn't ready to leave because it wants to wait for somebody else in the family to leave. But it was at this house, and I had to ask it to leave that house until the people were willing, because they would miss it, and I knew that would happen. And then it was able to come back, and I've done that. You know, so.
Anyone else? Okay, well, let's do the energy transfer, and then we can continue afterward. I'll explain the process a little bit for those of you who are new. So it's a two-part process, and so Barb will first, what does the energy look like in the room?
Well, we have a lot of new people, so we have a lot of, you know, lower energy, and some of us are, you know, expanded through each other and through the ceiling, but there's a lot of low energy too, so.
Okay. So it's a two-part process, and when I ask you to start, I'll ask you to close your eyes and just breathe comfortably. I'll play a little music in the background. Barb will be observing the room. I'll have my eyes closed too. And she can let us know afterward what she saw. I will ask you to send me your density. Now that you can do just simply by sitting there with holding that intention. It's as simple as that, because this collective consciousness will facilitate the process. Or if you want to be more active, you can do that. If you For example, maybe you're experiencing negative emotions about something in your life, or had some kind of life trauma that you'd like to send. You can focus on that with intention and send that. Or just say a prayer to your higher self or whoever you ordinarily pray to, and ask that whatever density you're ready to release today be released. And if you're visual, you can visualize that as a dark cloud that you're sending from yourself to me. And don't worry, no harm will come to me in the process, and your density won't hit anybody else in the room in the process of coming to me. Some people are very energy sensitive, and if you are, you may feel it. People who are not energy sensitive oftentimes don't feel anything physically in their body. Either way, the effects are there. We've been doing this for years, and it's worked every time because we can always tell the aura has changed afterward, even people who don't feel it. And you may feel, if you do feel something, you may feel it as vibration, or some people see colors, others feel temperature change. If you're first time here, some people who are first time will experience more intensity after the energy transfer, so which could be more tiredness for a couple of days. Over the years, there are about 2 or 3 people who had the opposite reaction, where they couldn't sleep for 3 solid days. That could happen, but those things are just your physical body adjusting to the change in consciousness, which every physical body is different, and so it responds differently to the difference in consciousness and also the change in your density. Yeah.
So we're transferring energy to you, you're not transferring to us.
I am. I'm sending you can visualize it as a white light from my heart center to yours while you're sending. So you're all sending your density, your karmic density to me. Barb sees it as she usually sees it as a dark cloud of energy coming toward me in the room. It won't affect anybody else, so don't worry about that. So it will come to me, and she sees it as disintegrating as it hits my energy field. But I'll be sending a white light to your heart center. If you'd like to visualize that, you can. You don't have to. But that is intended to raise your consciousness and also to increase your energy field, and also transfers knowledge and information that you'll use in your life. So it's a 2-part process, and all throughout. So we'll go for maybe 10 minutes until Barb tells us we're done, and she'll let us know based on, she watches everybody's auras, and when she feels like you've had enough, she'll stop me, and so at that time, we'll stop the process. But all throughout, you'll be sending your density to me, and I'll be sending that energy to you. So you can participate if you'd like to visually participate, but you don't have to. All you have to do is just sit there. So that's the process. And any other questions? Okay, so let's do that, and then we can continue our conversation afterward. I'll play a little music in the background. This music is by Marc Romero, who's been a speaker at our Expo many times. He's a high vibrational musician, so his music is very conducive to this kind of work. So I like to use it. So close your eyes and breathe comfortably. And I'd like you to hold the intention to send me your karma or density. And if you'd like, you can visualize that as a dark cloud you're sending from your physical body to mine. At the same time, I'm going to be sending a white light from my heart center to yours. So I'll be silent now until we're done. some of you may have experienced some emotions, or not just during the energy transfer, but when you just entered the space. It's just when density is being released, a lot of times there are emotions attached to that density from other life experiences, and as that density is being released, the emotion attached to it will often go as well. So if you experience any of that, that's all it is. You may not even know where it came from, but that's not necessarily important. What's important is that the emotion represents a release of that density.
Oh, everything, everybody lightened up, you know. It was like, it just, everyone kept getting lighter and lighter and lighter, and until everyone, I made sure that everybody had released all they were willing to release, you know, and you were just shivering that energy down to everybody, you know, so, so, yeah. That was good. It was good. Everything lightened up.
I felt like a shift take place when it was like there was a light that came on, and it was like a shift at that time when the light came on. So that was awesome. Thank you.
I could see white light as well.
Well, all of you, so over the years we've had people have all kinds of interesting experiences, from physical health changes to manifestation of your spiritual gifts and awareness. So many people who attend my events often, or people who are in my advanced program, their spiritual gifts will start to open up and evolve. So you may have some awareness of those things. So it could be any number of things, but if you experience some sensory experience or saw lights or whatever, those are all just your way to confirm that something shifted for you. And even those of you who might not have felt anything, it's not important that you felt anything. The effects will still be there. We've done this often enough to know that it's very consistent. Anyone else have any questions or experiences you want to share?
So what's going on, like, in your mind to do this? I know that you said something about you have a wish or an intention and then you let it go.
When we're here physically at these events, I participate in the process. What I've come to realize over the last several years is that this physical body, I came into this incarnation with this agreement that this physical body would be used for this purpose throughout this incarnation without my conscious awareness. So this collective of beings has been using this body as a conduit for this all throughout my life, even as a child, even though I didn't know. So I don't necessarily have to have a conscious intention to do this, and this is why, as I said earlier, if you look at some of my YouTube videos of energy transfers, you'll see from the comments people are posting that they're having similar experiences to what you're having here. And I have no way of knowing when they're doing that, when they're watching the videos. So the intention is in the video to facilitate this process for anybody who is watching. So I don't have to consciously have intention. However, here I have the intention to facilitate it, and so I participate in the intention, and I also have certain breathing practices and certain visualizations that I utilize. So in person is a little bit more intense than, say, if you were to watch it on video, but the intention is always there, and there are people all over the world sending density to me and facilitating this without my conscious knowing of it. My intention is just there all the time for this collective to facilitate this whenever someone asks for it. So that's all that's really necessary, and I don't really have to do much of anything. If I didn't want to here, I could just sit here and it would still work. Your sensory experiences may be not as intense as me participating in it, but it'll still happen. Does that answer the question?
And when you were talking, you mentioned your spiritual shield that goes out around you when people send in their density, so it protects you. And at one point I opened my eyes and I noticed that you were holding your hands in a very specific way. Is that something that you use? Is that a tool for you?
Well, it is something. Well, it's a common mudra, but it's one that I just gravitated to, just intuitively, just feels right. I don't actually know the meaning behind this mudra, but yeah, it's one that I tend to use during all my events, all my energy transfer events. Every mudra has a particular purpose and intention, but yeah, I do use that one. So I want you to think of, so for example, you see this as a material thing, as a physical thing in this reality. I want you to start perceiving of everything in your material reality as an antenna. So this is not really what you think it is. It's not a candle. It is an antenna. Actually, it's not even a candle. It's a light. So it's a fake candle. Well, this fake candle, imagine that this is an antenna, and everything that you see around you that has matter, that has physical presence in this third dimensional reality, is not really what it appears to be. It's just an antenna. And that antenna, it has a certain structure that tunes in a very specific aspect of multidimensional consciousness. So this fake candle has a certain specific kind of structure that tunes in a very specific part of this field of consciousness that's around us. And when it tunes it in, it appears in this reality as this fake candle. So this is what makes our reality, is all of you are antennas to multidimensional energy. And so someone like Barb or Michaela, who Barb can see auras, Michaela is channeling, they're doing that because their antenna is tuned to, has a certain structure. And that structure allows them to receive this information that's all around us, that all of you have access to. It's all around you. But not all of you are perceiving all of it because your antenna is a little bit different. It's a little bit different structure. So anything that manifests in this third dimensional reality is not really a physical thing. It is physical to us in this reality, but it's actually an antenna, a receiver that has a certain structure that receives just a specific amount of information that makes it tangible in this reality in a certain form. Okay, so when we do an energy transfer, what's happening is we're adjusting the structure of your antenna. So this is why some people will have dramatic health changes. Others will start to have spiritual experiences, or spiritual gifts will open up in them because we've adjusted that antenna. And so some of you may have health problems, others may have other kinds of issues in your life or things that you want to change. And because we are very much trained by our society to think we live in a physical reality where everything is real because our senses perceive it, we get used to the idea that this fake candle is what it is and it cannot be changed because it's physical and there's no way to physically change it. But all we simply need to do is to change the structure of the antenna that is creating it. And if we do that, this candle can turn into something else. So in the same way, anything in your physical reality can be changed to anything else if you can simply change the structure of it. So this is why some people, for example, they'll go to a healer and they will have had cancer and suddenly they don't. And doctors say that's impossible, you can't do that, but it's happening. So what's happening is the antenna structure is being changed. So you can change anything in your reality, including health problems, including your financial situation, including your relationships or anything, simply by making adjustments to the antenna. Now there are many ways to do that. Energy transfer is one of the best ways because we will adjust your antenna on many different dimensional levels at the same time. But some people they'll clean out their house and throw out all their old junk, and suddenly their life changes. And what right? That happens to a lot of people. So one great way to transform your life is get rid of your old junk because you're carrying that density. But that density is creating a certain antenna, a certain frequency of energy that is drawing a certain kind of reality to your third dimensional experience. So by getting rid of all that stuff, you've suddenly changed that antenna. And so now that antenna cannot bring in the same information from this morphogenic field of information of infinite everything, infinite possibility, can no longer tune in the same thing. So it can be as simple as throwing out your old stuff, or it can be as simple as changing the people you hang out with. That will change the antenna, which will change the physical three-dimensional reality into another one. So reality is as simple as that. We use our senses as a crutch, and so we get stuck in the perception that this is what it is and it cannot be changed, but it can be changed. So we're heading into a world now where we're starting to see our reality this way, and we're starting to have more and more people actually manifest tangibly in the three-dimensional reality the ability to do things like that. It was always available to us. I mean, throughout history, we have heard stories of monks who could chant a certain way and have stones lift in the air, or have them change shape, or manifest their physical body in two different places at once. All of these things have always been a possibility. It's just in our westernized society, we're not raised to believe that way. Yeah.
It's kind of a two-part question, and I'll use your analogy about the clutter. So I clear out my house, it will create space. Then you hear you just replace it with new clutter. So hold that thought for a second. My question is, when you talk about coming back and this being progressive or cumulative is the word to use, I've always kind of wondered when I'm going through more dense times of life and really feel like I'm, quote, screwing up and getting away from meditation. Is it possible when you've expanded consciousness to repress or lose some of that? And I guess I'm wondering for myself is what I noticed, it takes less time to get out of what I'm recognizing as more dense situations than it ever did in the past. Back to the analogy, maybe next time I declutter my house, it wouldn't take as long to make those decisions. So I'm kind of, you get my question? Is,
well, first of all,
lose what we're gaining from this just by the not so great choices that we might make over a period of time? Or is it strictly free will? I'm now back. I'm making the choice to be back into this higher dimension. It's just that easy.
Well, you worry too much about worrying too much.
That's so simple. Thank you. That really. All right. So I'm feeling good.
What else can I do?
The majority of us can leave now.
They say that we typically in our three-dimensional world that we we'll believe it when we see it, right? But I think that because there's so much beyond our five senses, I mean, even science proves this all the time. They come up with these new ways to sense things without the five senses, experiments that we can we should believe, and then it will come and we will maybe sense more because we believe that it does exist.
Right.
Whereas before we were just, there's these five senses and that's it. You're saying there's so much more.
Right.
That exists all around us, everywhere, in all these dimensions. We weren't taught, we didn't know. We're little babies.
Mm-hmm. Belief is knowing. It's not, I think there's a little bit of misconception about the word belief or the idea of belief. Belief a lot of times can be clouded by doubts and fears and things like that. So you can believe to your heart's content, but you still can't create a different reality because your knowing is different. So, for example, I am surrounded by, my world these days is in some ways fantastic compared to a mainstream world. And most people would think such a world couldn't exist, and people that I know couldn't possibly be real. But they're here. So my world exists in the way that I experience it because I have a knowing of it now. And the more I head into this future and surround myself with more and more of that, the more it becomes real. And so it's not a matter of belief. I don't actually I wouldn't say it's a belief of this world being real. It simply exists. I have a knowing of this world because it is my life, So the more you start to know a different reality as your reality and not a belief you're trying to create, but that simply exists, the more it becomes your reality. So it's sort of, chicken or the egg.
Your mind to that.
Sometimes it's,
So many
yes.
people would just immediately not even consider it.
Right. Well, this is where the consciousness shift that she's talking about is necessary. You cannot, and I've experienced this over the years. A lot of times people come to me and they'll say, well, explain this spiritual concept to me. And I'll explain to them. They have no idea what I'm talking about. It just goes over their head. And yet, after some time passes and they've had a bit of an adjustment in consciousness, they will come back to me and explain the concept. Because it is not possible for someone to understand a concept. For example, 10 people can read the Bible and have 11 different meanings for it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's all based on the consciousness level of that person. So it's not the words is the same, but the consciousness level of each person is different. And so they will interpret it from the standpoint of their own understanding based on the information they have access to, based on their antenna. So if we have 10 people with 10 different antennas, then they are going to interact with the same environmental factors, say the Bible, and derive different meaning from it, derive a different reality from it. So therefore, you can't really teach someone anything. You can teach them concepts, you can share words with them, but real knowledge cannot be taught through words. It has to be taught through vibration. So the energy transfer is that. I mean, it is a transfer of vibrational knowledge to all of you, which is going to cause you to see your reality differently. So if you want to change somebody's perspective on reality, you can't really, if they're not already there, you can't really talk them senseless until they believe you. It's never going to happen. I mean, unless they're already there, or they're very close to being there. You have to raise them to a level where they can understand it. And then the words you say will have different meaning. So that's where it's a little bit of a tricky thing. Yeah.
Are there different channels for that antenna, so to speak?
What do you mean channels?
Well, like you're using a channel to tap into something. Are there different things that you can tap into? Different things that you can connect with?
Different pieces of information, different consciousness. Well, yes, of course. Well, I mean, in this space exists everything that ever was and everything that ever will be, and every single dimension that has ever existed and ever will exist is here. But you don't all perceive it, right? Barb can see auras and beings in the room, so she's perceiving an aspect of this field of information that most of you or all of you are not. Michaela can channel these beings, so she's perceiving an aspect of this field that most of you cannot. So, yes, I mean, the information in this room is infinite. It is beyond your comprehension, and we couldn't possibly, as individual human beings, perceive all of it at once. But it is all here. So, and you can tap into any of it. And how you tap into it is determined by the antenna that you have. And as that antenna changes, you will tap into different aspects of it. So if you, for example, like Michaela channeling ninth dimensional Palladians, she cannot channel ninth dimensional Palladians unless she is, at that moment, a ninth dimensional Palladian. So she has to raise herself to a level of consciousness where she matches that frequency. So essentially her antenna matches the frequency of the beings or consciousness that is speaking through her. So in the same way, I mean, so all of you will evolve through this process that just took place. It's going to be different for each of you. It will unlock your own unique potential because each of you is different. Each of you are on a different path in this life. Some of you may manifest it through one modality of work, and others may manifest it through another, because each of us are here to express it differently. But by removing the density, you'll start seeing more clarity into what you need to do with your lives. A lot of light workers especially are very much stuck in their lives, and I hear a lot of times from people who they feel like, I'm here for a purpose, but I don't know what it is, and I don't even know how to get there. Well, that's because you're carrying this density that's weighing down your experience, and you may not possess the adequate consciousness to be able to do whatever that is. So this process is going to relieve you of that density and raise your consciousness, which will allow you to have awareness of what you should do and the tools to be able to do it. So the more often you come, the more we'll move you in that direction. And so people who are around me, who are on my teams and such, they all unavoidably end up following whatever path. They start manifesting their gifts and things like that, even without me actually doing anything. It's just because this energy is always working. So those are some of the things that, and you can, even do simple things in your life to adjust your antenna. Because your physical body is your antenna, but it's multidimensional. So energy transfer is a very fast way to make adjustments. But you can do something else to physically alter your body. For example, Michaela was talking earlier about breath work. Breath work is an excellent way to adjust the antenna. And when you adjust the antenna in that way, it changes the information that's coming into it, and which changes not only your physiology, but your psychology, your relationships, your financial situation. Everything will change.
What would be another word for density?
Density?
Yeah.
Well, karma is what's used commonly for density.
Negative necessarily?
Well, there's nothing negative in the universe. It's all just is. But if as human beings we like to give meaning to things, so from that perspective, yes, it's negative. Density or karma is, from our perception, negative. It's the result of something that happened to us adversely in this or another incarnation that translated into a vibration, an energy that we carry with us. So maybe I find this a lot. A lot of light workers were, burnt at the stake or whatever, because in some past life they had gifts, and a lot of witches were burned, and Salem and whatnot. So many light workers will come into this incarnation with that previous life density, and that density. So it's a karmic experience that was negative for them. They brought it into this incarnation, and it weighs down this experience. They may not remember where it came from. Some do actually, but not all of them do. But nonetheless, it's just always there, and it's preventing them from stepping forward in this life. So yeah, you could say it's negative, but in the grand scheme of things, there is no negative. All experience is simply experience. There's no positive or negative.
I've noticed that when I do a one-on-one an aura reading with people, that I've noticed that it helps them focus on what makes them more happy. What would they like to do with their life? What, maybe they're not necessarily in the correct field, and that's some of the things that have happened, when I've done, like I said, on one-on-one. I've noticed that anytime I've ever been with anyone and they catch me, because I'm mostly retired now, that they always leave me happier. So, and, even in the aura reading, it helps, adjust antennas.
I was just curious as to what you saw when you
What you mean as far as the whole room? I saw a lot of sadness was in the room. You know, there was the colors were you know how when you have a bright color and then you put a gray over it, and so that makes the color duller, so a lot of people's colors were duller. And as they released the negativity or the density that they didn't need anymore, their colors got brighter and brighter. So until, like I said, when I knew that everyone had everything that they could accept, then nothing was going to change, and that's when I call it, and that's when I say you've had enough. Everyone's had as much as they could take, as far as but it made in doing this, it made your aura lighter and brighter. Okay.
I had someone on my show, actually, the show that's broadcasting tonight at 7. She's one of her areas of expertise is health and diet and nutrition, that kind of thing. And I asked her the question, well, do you think that people are going to live longer in the future? And her response was, well, I think that if you look forward in your life and decide how long you want to live, let's say, and she said 150 years. So let's say you want to live 150 years. And then you project that backward to the present and you decide, okay, if I'm going to live to 150 years, what am I going to have to do in my life to do that? And then live a life in accordance with that, then certainly you can do that. And so, it's all about making choices and adjusting the frequency of your body to accommodate that. I just recently came across, because we're living in this amazing time where so many things are changing and consciousness is expanding so rapidly, opportunities for things that were not available to us globally are becoming available, like this energy transfer, for example. But I just recently came across this form of yoga that's just finally being taught in India. And it's called Kaya Kalpa Yoga, and it's something I read about in a book many years ago. It's an old book written about a yogi in India who lived to 185 years, and by one of his devotees who wrote the book. And he, in the book, it talked about this yogi used this yoga to live to 185 years. And at 185 years, he looked about 50 years old. And he was in perfect health, and he didn't die of health problems. He told his devotees, I won't be here tomorrow, and the next day he was gone. So anyhow, this technique is now being taught in India. And there are a handful of people in the U.S. who are now teaching it as well, not very many. Kaya Kalpa, Kayakakalpa, yoga. And there's no one in Michigan yet teaching it. They have just a few masters they've authorized to teach it in the U.S. But apparently it takes 7 minutes. Now I'm planning on studying it myself, but I just found out about it. So my point is, tools are being made available to us at this time because of the acceleration of consciousness that allow us to do things we couldn't do before, that allow us to grow and expand in consciousness faster than that was ever possible in our recorded history, and that allow us to extend our life indefinitely. And the teachers of this yoga say that it will allow you to live until you decide you're done. So there's no limit to life. Wow. So, and it takes 7 minutes a day, I guess, to practice.
Wow.
Whatever.
That's easy enough to do.
Yeah.
What do you know about binaural frequency training?
Yeah.
And how that
binaural beats. Yeah.
It's accelerated.
What about it?
What do you know about it? I mean, it's
it's
left and right.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically technology assisting in meditation. So it's people who have practiced meditation naturally achieve certain brainwave synchronization, but binaural beats are just our modern way of meditating, It's I'm sure most of you guys know what it is, right? So you can download free ones online nowadays. It used to be, 20 years ago you had to go out of your way to find this stuff, but nowadays it's pretty easy to come by. They're basically sound wave patterns that you wear as headphones on your head, and they create different sounds in each ear that force your brain into a certain brainwave pattern and synchronize the left and right brain. So it's a faster way for you to achieve the benefits of meditation than conventional meditation. So it's very effective. I've used it for ever since I don't know, 20, 30 years or so. I've been using binaural beats for meditation.
In that same conversation, I noticed they offer binaural beats at different frequencies. Mm-hmm. Is there any frequency that's dangerous or one that you should? Or is it generally safe for the brain and for you?
Well, I would always try to find someone you trust, because you don't really, I can't really speak, because there's nowadays on YouTube, there are tons of them, right? Yeah. So I can't speak to the integrity of all of them, because I don't know who all those people are. But if you find a good source or a trusted source or one that's popular, then yes, they will offer different frequencies. Now the main ones are beta, alpha, theta, delta. Those are pretty common. Most people can achieve those states and do in just normal day-to-day life and sleep state. Now, if you go beyond that, there's gamma, and then there's lambda and epsilon, and each one has different purpose. So I believe gamma and epsilon are for deep states of consciousness, and I can't remember what all they do, but no, there's no danger to any of them. But I would say, though, if you're not used to using binaural beats, then start slow, because the danger is only in that some people who are not used to it or who are new to it, they will have very dramatic reactions in their life, because you are changing the antenna. Okay, your mind, your brain is an antenna. So science has claimed that consciousness is in the brain. Consciousness is not in the brain. Consciousness is out here. The brain is an antenna that tunes in aspects of consciousness. So as your brain changes, so for example, if you go to the gym and you do cardio 5 times a week, it's going to change your brain. It's going to change the neural pathways, which means that now your brain has changed its antenna. It's now bringing in different information than it did before. So everybody's brain is different, and so what binaural beats will do is it will adjust the antenna and will cause you to tune in different information. The risk for that is, for some people who are brand new to it, if they go too fast for themselves, their lives may completely turn around in another direction in an uncomfortable way. In a good way, but it may not feel so good at first. So you could have some physical reactions and things like that. So I would suggest just starting slow, but I use all of them these days, but I've been doing it for 30 years, so.
When I first started listening to the binaural beats, I had an experience that didn't freak me out because I was already meditating and studying, but I was sitting in my car and it was cold out, and there was a flock of pigeons near me, and they had their wings tucked and they were minding their own business, and then all of a sudden they came and started walking on my car, just beside the car that I was on. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what, watching this is freaking out, I know. And I tried to get my camera to videotape what was happening. It didn't even seem real. Mm-hmm. I was stopped at a stop sign sending a text message, and all of a sudden it hit my side view mirror, and then on my windshield, and another one on my windshield, and on top of the truck, and all on just this one side. And I'm looking around like, wow. And I can only attribute it to this level of meditation that I was doing. And it hasn't happened again, but it wasn't long after I started doing that.
Yeah, you alter your reality when you do things like that.
I just want to add something. Make sure you feel in your body, like it doesn't matter what you're listening to, trust your body. because everybody and their brother is doing sound healings right now and mixing Hertz frequencies with other things. And that might not feel good to you, and you have to trust that, because if it's not feeling good in your body, it's probably not for you. Because I've been a participant of some sound healings lately where I've walked in and immediately felt sick, or in your initial reaction to think, well, this is a sound healing, I must be getting the flu, or this should be good for me. But just because it's sound doesn't mean it's going to affect everybody the same, and it doesn't mean who's playing the sound has got the right intention or experience to combine the kinds of modalities that they're using. So always trust your body when you listen to that stuff. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's good. Anyone else?
But sometimes too, when people are clearing, sometimes it doesn't feel well.
Possible, yeah. Could be detox.
You know, as a detox. So
Yeah.
if you don't have enough water, I think that's where it comes to maybe feeling sick and stuff. You know, there's certain things that might still. But I have been in a room where, you know, it's just too many people, the energy is too strong, you just know that something's not right in you.
And that's, trust your
somebody's playing
intuitive, right?
it, and you can really feel their intention. It's like they're having a bad day or something. I don't know, go serve. So
Exactly.
Like 300 crystal bowls.
The consciousness of the person doing the thing is going to have an effect. So it's, you know, I could play crystal bowls, and I don't know a thing about playing crystal bowls, but the consciousness of who I am is what's going to project through that experience. The crystal bowls are simply a conduit to transmit that energy. Yeah.
Could that be like albums? Music?
Anything, yeah, music. So
Player, if somebody's playing guitar, singing it.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you listen to a particular musician and you like their music, keep in mind that you're not receiving just the music you're hearing. You're receiving that person's energy, their essence, their consciousness. So if you're really sensitive to that sort of thing, then you may want to be more conscious of who you're listening to and who you're surrounding. Now, yeah, you can't live in a bubble, obviously. So it's all a matter of how much of certain kinds of influences you surround yourself with versus other things.
awareness.
Yeah.
Just being aware.
Right. I mean, you can go outside this room and breathe toxic chemicals, and you know, there are all kinds of things in our environment. So it's just a matter of how much of the positive are you surrounding yourself with. And at a certain point, your consciousness, so if you do energy transfers often enough or other types of things to raise your consciousness, you will become resistant to those other things. So you don't have to worry about music you're listening to or toxic chemicals so much, because your vibration will be at a level that it's sort of beyond that. So the effects will not be so much on, it's like as I was starting the conversation earlier, your antenna cannot tune in those frequencies as much as somebody else who is functioning at a lower vibration. So it won't have an effect, yeah.
This is a little bit different, but you know, I think animals speak to us.
Mm-hmm.
And do birds have a special message that they bring in? It seems to me that I had a wonderful friend that died, and then soon after there was a bird that was hanging out all the time, and I just wondered how that all fits.
Well, what we don't know from your story is, was that bird a physical thing, or were you seeing it and maybe it wasn't really physical? Okay, but I mean, maybe it was. But what I'm saying is, like in some cases, when people have a visitation from someone who has passed on, that person may appear fully physical to them, but they may not be fully physical in this reality. They no longer possess a physical three-dimensional body, but they project a portion of their consciousness into this reality so that you perceive them. So that bird might have only been for your benefit. Maybe nobody else could perceive it. Or it could have been real. But in any case, let's say that it is real. I mean, all things are interconnected, so whoever it is that passed on can certainly communicate through you through other animals. So that is very possible. And it is possible, although not very common, that sometimes spirit guides will manifest through animals too. So sometimes if you have a close spirit guide, they may be your pet or something. That's not very often, but that does tend to happen. So, yeah.
I can
I can let you know we had several deaths, 3 deaths in the last 5 months. And the day after my father passed, I came out of my driveway and there was a pheasant, which he loved pheasants. Never been a pheasant, hadn't seen it since. Then there were fire trucks, but that was something totally different as well. But it was very clear that he was saying, hey, I'm here, I'm good. And I recognized it, so that made it a lot easier to do whatever I had to do to help the family get through what everybody was going through. So, once you know that, life is so much easier.
All of life is. Go ahead.
So the spirit will choose what is best for your consciousness to receive a message.
Yeah.
So we will see spirit as we need to see them in order to receive what we need to receive.
And we also had a relative that passed, and it was nighttime when I came home, and as soon as I pulled into the driveway, about 8 birds or something right in front of my car. And then I got one message, and the next message, and the next message, and the next one. So, I mean, it's like, I don't know how it's possible or anything, it's just that it was an experience with it.
All of life is synchronicity. We're all always connected. It's just that most of the time we are not open to that idea. And so in those moments when somebody dies, we're looking for a sign, or we're more receptive, and suddenly synchronicity happens and we think, oh my God, synchronicity just happened. But it's always synchronicity. All of life is synchronicity. When you become conscious of living in a world where all of life is synchronicity, then everything becomes synchronicity. And you start noticing, all kinds of things like that. So it's just your perception and your willingness to accept that the reality you live in has certain characteristics. And when you do that, your reality will take on those characteristics. Anyone else?
You were talking about hertz, and frequencies and everything, with binary, who's listening to those things. Also, I think the different levels of them, 340 or 800 or whatever it is, probably affects different parts of your body too.
Sure.
So you may have different either experiences or reactions, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just your brain, it's going to affect your whole body, really.
Vibrating, different parts of the body.
Certainly. Yeah, that's why sound healing works. It's if you're in a room with that kind of a vibrational experience, then it is going to affect your body. Now, we're doing that even just talking. So each of your voices contains the essence of your being. So there's a woman, I can't remember her name offhand, but she's in Ohio. Edwards? Was it Edwards? Maybe you're right. I know it's Sherry, but I can't remember if that was the last name. Sherry something. She's in Ohio, and she was born with a deformity in one ear. And a deformity that caused her to be able to hear sounds differently from anybody else. And so she could, in her early life, she could tell if somebody was lying by the way their voice sounded. And so she can watch politicians on TV, and she knows when they're telling the truth just by their voice. And good gift to have, right? But what's even more interesting is she can take a 30-second recording of your voice and tell you everything about you, your health, your interests, what kind of career path you're on, things like that, just from 30 seconds of your voice. So your voice contains the essence of your being, your consciousness, your health, all those things. She can tell health problems from just a little clip of your voice. And then by using different other kinds of sounds or foods or whatever, she can cause that voice tone to change, thereby altering the physiology. So if someone has cancer, let's say, she can see that and she can say, okay, well, listen to this frequency of sound or go eat this kind of food, and that will alter the frequency, and then when she re-records your voice, it'll be different. So each of you, by speaking, you're actually projecting your consciousness, your energy into that space and to all of those around you. We're changing each other's genetics just simply by talking. So you have to, so it's an interesting thing to consider. We're constantly evolving each other just simply in conversation.
And on that same note, the experiment with the water, using positive words and negative words.
Yeah.
Well, we're 80% water.
Right.
So if you consider it from that standpoint,
Yep.
negative, positive, how it affects us.
Sure. Yeah. Definitely.
So you can have a voice of attraction, or you can have a voice that repels.
Yeah. Well, the voice doesn't necessarily by itself attract or repel, but it transmits the essence of that person. It transmits a vibration or a frequency. So in my voice, the energy transfer energy exists. So people, I've been on radio shows and things like that where they record my voice and I'll do an energy transfer on the recording and they'll play back this recording. Other people listen to the recording later and they'll have the energy transfer from the audio recording. So in the voice contains the essence and the energy and the consciousness of that person. Now attraction is a little bit different. Attraction is not just in the voice, it's also in the energy field of that person. So if that person has a very strong energy field, then certainly that will be present in the voice. But the voice can't by itself do that.
So if a person walks away from you, you wouldn't say, "Is it something I said?"
Yes, that could be. Now, if you, and I'm sure since you practice martial arts, you probably know some of this, but if your energy centers are more balanced and your root energy is channeled higher, you have more influence over your environment. So you will be more attractive versus more repulsive. Now, most people don't have very strong energy fields, so that's not really so much of an issue. But if you do things to strengthen that, your energy, even energy transfers, but certainly other things can do that as well. This Kaya Kalpa Yoga is one of the things that it does. Is it actually causes your energy field to become stronger, so your physical presence becomes stronger as well. But there are lots of ways to go about doing that. But it's not just the voice. It's more. There's more than that. Anyone else?
Any quick words of guidance for the upcoming celestial events that are happening? I think we're out of time, but we got Mercury Retrograde, we got planet alignments, we've got this.
Stay home.
Stay home. Take salt baths.
I think Michaela said some things either channeling or prior to that were pretty relevant. She can see information from another dimension that I don't have access to, but my perspective comes from being an astrologer and also other things that I do. So, these two eclipses, one in the 21st of August and then February, I forget what the date is, but they're both very similar. They're opposite, actually. One eclipse, it's on one side of the planet, and the other eclipse is almost exactly on the other side of the planet, which is not uncommon. You usually have eclipses in series, so you usually have one eclipse on one side and one on the other side. So this one in August is visible here. So if you want to be outside at 2 o'clock or something, or 2:30 in the afternoon on the 21st, you'll be able to witness that. But first of all, it's especially relevant because it is in this area. So whenever an eclipse is visible in a particular area, it has more impact on that area versus the area that is not visible. So now this particular one is very significant in that it's a very positive one. I see a lot of very positive things. Now I'm speaking very three-dimensionally. So whereas Michaela is speaking more multidimensionally, what the guides had to say about it. So from a three-dimensional standpoint, it's a very positive, both eclipses are very positive, but the one in August is especially positive. Positive in the sense that I see a lot of people's lives growing and expanding and, more financial successes and abundance in people's lives. So there are opportunities. Now, if your chart is more in resonance with those eclipses, which I wouldn't know each of your charts offhand, but if it was, then it's going to impact you more than someone else. Now, the eclipses generally have an effect about a month and a half prior to the eclipse. So if some of you had a financial windfall recently, chances are that eclipse that has hit your chart in a positive way, even though it hasn't happened yet. So
Imagine if it's your birthday.
What's that?
Imagine if it's your birthday.
If it's your birthday, yes, it's especially positive for you, yeah. So if your birthday is anytime around that time, then it's probably going to be a very good year, and probably already has started to shape up for you. But certainly they're two very positive. Now, Mercury is going retrograde. Well, technically it's not retrograde till August, but it's already retrograde now in terms of its influence in our lives. So you're already going to start seeing some things going awry a bit. Unless you were born with Mercury retrograde, in which case people who are born with it, a lot of times all the stuff that's significant in their lives tend to happen during Mercury retrograde. But assuming that you weren't, then Mercury retrograde can cause technology issues. So a lot of times, if you have to buy technology during Mercury retrograde, make sure you get an extended warranty. You'll probably use it. That's true. I always do. If I ever have to, I always get a warranty because I've always used it. But try to avoid doing that. Mercury retrograde is also a prime time for arguments, so a lot of people misunderstand each other and can tend to get into arguments more often. I mean, it's not negative, but when a planet goes retrograde, we have harder lessons to learn in that particular area. Mercury has to do with communication, so especially communication technology, computers, cell phones, but relationships between people because of communication will become strained. So it's a time when people tend to argue more because they just don't get along or they have communication issues. So I would just say be more conscious of how you communicate to people and keep in mind that people may not understand you properly and you'll need to take more care to explain yourself better. Try to avoid signing any contracts because anything written will come into question later. So if you have to sign a contract, just be aware it might be revised another few times before it's final. So anything of that nature, Mercury retrograde thing is not a time to start new projects or new things. But, sometimes you do. And when you do, there's a lesson in it for you. So it's not a bad thing. It just means that if you do start something during Mercury retrograde and it goes off the rails later, it's because you needed to learn something from that experience. And so quite often, a lot of times when you start something on a Mercury retrograde, it'll never manifest. You'll end up abandoning it later. Or it'll just, run into so many obstacles, you just eventually give up on it. But there's a lesson in it, and you learn and grow through the experience. So it's not a bad thing. On the other hand, if you restart something during a Mercury retrograde that you had previously been working on, then that's okay. As long as it's not a brand new thing, usually it'll work out all right. So I don't know what else is going on, but those I think those are the immediate influences.
Saturn is going retrograde.
Is it? I can't remember.
End of August.
Oh, okay. Yep. Well, Saturn and I don't know when Jupiter is going retrograde. So Saturn. I used to be a professional trader years ago, so I used to look at astrology and how it affected the markets. And what I found was most of the time, so about 90% of the time, when Saturn was direct and Jupiter was retrograde, the markets were going down. And when Jupiter was direct and Saturn was retrograde, the markets were going up intensely, about to max out. So the market peaks always happen when Jupiter is direct and Saturn is retrograde. So Saturn, while it can be the source of much difficulty in people's lives, it also maintains balance and stability in our reality. It's a very three-dimensional vibration. It's very dense. But Saturn and Jupiter together make up our material, our financial system, our whole, financial business cycle. One expands and one contracts. So when you put the two together, it kind of maintains stability, balance, yes. So if Jupiter's direct, Jupiter tends to be in control, and people tend to get overly enthusiastic and buy too much, and that's when markets top out. When Saturn's direct and Jupiter's retrograde, people become too pessimistic, and markets tend to go down. And when they're both direct, unless some other influence is hitting them in a negative way, markets are pretty stable. They're usually going up, but at a steady pace, nothing extreme either way. So when you see Saturn retrograde, what happens is people lose their rational side a bit. They become a little less practical. They take more risks. And business becomes a little less stable during those times. And if Jupiter's direct too, which I think it is, then you'll see extreme activity, people taking extreme amounts of risk and doing crazy things. Markets will top out during those times. So if you're investing in something, don't buy when Jupiter's direct and Saturn's retrograde. That's when you should be getting ready to sell soon. It's better to buy when Saturn is when the markets are down lower, when Saturn is direct and Jupiter is retrograde. So, but yeah, I mean it's not a bad thing. It's just everything in balance. So, I find that while in some ways people are more optimistic though when Saturn's retrograde, because it lifts a lot of the weight off our shoulders, and that's why people take more risks, because they feel like they can. But then when it flips the other way, they usually regret their choices. So just keep that in mind. It's an opportunity for you to relax a little bit, but don't go too crazy.
Can I ask you? I have a question. Do you know, or can you confirm that Saturn moves into the space where it was when you were born at certain points in your life? Like, yeah. I think I heard 29, 50.
About 30 years. About every 30 years it does, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are you about 30?
I'm 29, turning 30.
Yeah, so you're going through a Saturn return, and that's a pivotal turning point in your life. But every 7.5 years, Saturn also makes a connection with itself. That's another sort of mini turning point. But every 30 years is the big one. That's why people get married at 30, they get divorced at 30, they change jobs at 30, because at 30, Saturn is the planet that makes you look at your achievements in your life. And so most people at 30, they wake up and they think, oh, this is not where I thought I should be. And so they change jobs, they change marriages, or they decide to get married and have kids because it's time to get serious and practical and, make better decisions in life. And so yes, it's always a point when things change. It's not a bad thing, but it can feel uncomfortable.
Well, for we're the same age. We're both 29, and we're experiencing so much synchronicity.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It's awesome. It's fantastic. Can I share a story of the synchronicity with the room? Because this is really interesting. I actually did not even know who you guys were until yesterday at about 2 o'clock in the evening, at night. I was, I've been I wouldn't say interacting with the Pleiadians, but they've been trying. They've been in my life, they've been directing me, and I've had the synchronicity happening, here and there, and I have a witness, and it's been happening with you too, and even just today, the fact that this is happening is huge. But I was just online last night, doing my thing, hanging out, looking for some work, actually. I was signing up for rover.com to walk dogs. I'm not working right now. I left my 9 to 5 a couple years ago because it didn't fit for me. I'm an Aquarius, so it did not fit for me to go into a job, work, even with school. I was always good at school, but I just never, it wasn't for me. When I tried hard, I could do it. When I didn't want to, it's because I really couldn't. And I tried to work, and I did well. I went to school for linguistics, so language and communication has always been big for me, but nothing there. So here I am, these Pleiadians come into my life, and I heard them through Barbara Marcinek. And yesterday was the day I decided I'm going to go see Barbara. channel the Palladians in Nevada City, California, and I emailed with them, set it up, sending a money order out. I made a commitment, I'm going to do it, and somehow I know with the intentions that I make each day, with what I've said, I wake up every day and say I want to learn more, I want to connect with my community, and I want to accelerate this learning because I know I can take it on. And as I'm signing up for this rover.com to come up with more money, to make sure I get my plane ticket, all that stuff, I accidentally click on an email. And it was a meetup group email. And I subscribe to a couple groups I don't ever go to, and I'm lazy with my emails. I don't delete the ones I never use anymore. I'll see the meetup come through and just, okay, there it is, whatever. Well, this time, I accidentally clicked on it. I don't really think about it, I just clicked on it. And out of nowhere, I just had the idea in the box, on the site, I typed in light. All I typed in was light. And this event came up. This specific event. So I visited your Facebook page last night, your Facebook page last night, your Facebook page last night.
You're the one.
I was there. I didn't say anything, but I just kind of looked into what we were getting into, and it was funny. Sherry's staying with me for the summer, and I sent her the email about it, and she sent, I was upstairs sleeping. She's like, are we going to go to this today? I'm like, yeah, we are. And here we are. So I just wanted to share that with you because we did talk a little bit about synchronicity. And, you might have heard me and Sherry over here giggling. And we're not trying to be rude. It's just so much is happening so fast. And if you haven't experienced that, I just want to be that living example for you and show you that it's amazing. I can hardly contain my energy right now. It's very, very cool.
Thank you.
For the
Thanks for coming.
That's amazing.
Well, thank you all for coming. It's always been great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next month.